Good evening. My name is Gabriel Leiva-Frenhoven, and I'm the president of Hispanotech. I'm very pleased because of the response that we had for this event. We expected about 80 people, but we were sold out and we will have approximately 95 people this evening. The topic is very interesting, and that's the reason we have such a good response. It is about the Internet of Things. With about 10 billion devices already interconnected and expecting it to grow to about 25 million by 2020, the Internet of Things offers the possibility of a safer, smarter, and more efficient planet. But at the same time, it creates concerns regarding intrusion, unexpected advertisement, and hidden fees. And therefore, it creates a lot of questions, and hopefully some of them will be answered this evening. Enjoy the evening. Thank you.
Thanks everyone. I'm really happy to be here. I see a lot of faces here. I'm going to take a little bit of time today to take you through how IBM is looking at the Internet of Things. I only have about 25-ish minutes, but I know there's going to be questions afterwards. This is a topic I'm very passionate about. There's a lot of fun things that we're doing here. It's very hard because we're making a lot of change, but I'm going to start off kind of at the highest level, and I'm going to just start peeling the onion back, and then as people have more questions, we can do that in the other forums. So I'm going to start off by just telling you what we mean by the Internet of Things. There's a lot of, it's a phrase that can mean a lot of different things, and we see it as the coming together of a set of market forces that are enabling there to be lots of different ways of driving value, all the way from very, I'll call it tactical things that you can improve, all the way to transformational, industry transformational. And I'll be getting into that more as we go through the presentation. But market forces involve things that are impacting us every day. Connectivity is becoming more pervasive, much more pervasive. It's becoming cheaper. Sensors are becoming super cheap. Analytics, sophisticated analytics are becoming much more available, more than they were before. The cost of storage is going way down, and cloud is enabling all this to come together. And that confluence of all these different things coming together is what we see as these forces all coming together at the same time. So it's going to drive dramatic change. It's already starting to drive dramatic change, and not just in business models, but in industries as a whole. So the interesting thing is, I don't know how many of you saw the IBM campaign that happened a few years ago around Smarter Planet. And they said Smarter Planet, IBM Smarter Planet, instrumented, interconnected, intelligent. We actually at IBM had started this journey many years ago because we started seeing these patterns in the market that were emerging. And so what we did more recently is we actually pulled together an entire business unit to address those patterns. We call it the Internet of Things Business Unit. That's where I sit. That's kind of the biggest unit that you can have at IBM as a business unit. But really, there's three different kinds of, when we look back and say, what have we seen over the past many years in terms of how the changes that the Internet of Things is bringing? It falls into three big buckets. There's a lot more, but if you kind of want to summarize, it's three big buckets. The first one is usually the one that is easiest to pull in, it's easiest to execute on, which is unlocking new revenue from existing products and services. So an example of that, I'm going to give lots of examples along the way. An example of that is there's a company called Chamberlain in the US that does garage door openers or perimeter control. And for the consumers who have, if you buy their garage door openers, because they're now instrumenting them and connecting them back to their server farm, they allow you to take out your iPhone or your mobile device and be able to not only open and close the doors, but also understand the state, when they were open and closed, what the current state is. So now you no longer have to worry about, did I forget to close the garage door? Did the garage door kind of fall, close and then kind of bump back up after I left? Simple things like that are now allowing Chamberlain to not only offer a different service, new service as part of their business model, but now they're connecting with their customers more. Every time the customer pulls up that app, they're connecting with Chamberlain, whereas before the only connection was whenever there was a warranty call or something that needed to be fixed. Second one here is around new working practices or processes. So there's an example of that is maintenance, asset maintenance. So if you're running a nuclear power plant and you've got some pumps, some really high value, very expensive big pumps that need to keep pumping to keep the coolant or the circulating, things like that. In the past, the way you would maintain those is what's called time-based or usage-based. Every so many days or every so many months, or you go in and lube up the bearings or do something like that. Now, as you're able to instrument those very cheaply, being able to start getting a lot of different readings off of those, now you're going to be able to maintain those when they need maintenance, or even more so, predict when they're going to need maintenance. So now your maintenance costs are going down, uptime is going up, and you're able to decide for each asset a specific strategy for how you want to address that asset. And we all know that that's good. We want our nuclear power plants or power generation or oil and gas rigs or all those things. We want them to be run in a safe, effective manner. And so this is what this number 2 is getting a lot more industrial about how our infrastructure is being managed. And then number 3 is actually this is the one that's the game-changing one: change or create new business model or strategy. So an example of that, that some of you, this is an older example, but Progressive Insurance in the U.S. They'll give you I wouldn't say better rates. They'll give you a rate that's more commensurate with how you drive if you agree to have some instrumentation in your car that feeds back what you do to the company. So if you're someone who maybe had a bad driving record, but you say, hey, I promise I'll be good, you can put one of these things in, and as long as you're good, you'll get better rates. And if you're not, the rates will change. And if you're in an accident, the thing knows now, and is ready. They can send a van before you even call. They can detect things like this. So now that insurance industry, that model is starting to change, and it's all this kind of change is what actually one of the things that drives customers to us, because customers want to know what's going to happen in my industry. Because if I don't know, then I'm not going to be part of the change. And maybe what happens to me is the same thing that happened to retailers when Walmart first came out with their big change that they made, all their optimizations that they did around supply chain and inventory control and so on. And so that's what customers are really asking us about. I want to point you, I don't know if this is in laser maybe, the 62% here, I'm sorry for those of you in the back, 62% of C-suite executives believe that companies slow to integrate Internet of Things will fall behind the competition. So this is not a 10 or 20%, almost 2/3. So this is on the minds of the C-level leaders. A couple things here. So I started mentioning this before. What happens? What changes can happen when you start bringing in the Internet of Things thought process? And one of the things that's interesting is that if you think about over on the right, digital innovation, because the Internet of Things is so digital, there's a whole set of innovation that's starting to happen there. I don't know how many of you all heard of the notion of a digital twin. If you have physical assets and you want to manage those physical assets, more and more there's this notion that you want to have a digital twin of that asset that you manage the physical aspect through. So you can visualize it, you can see what's happening to it in real time, you can pull in other data sources in to help you predict things that might be happening to it. And so more and more, this notion of a digital twin for the physical assets that are out there, for the things, right, the Internet of Things, is something that people are innovating around. The other piece here, and I mentioned different types of data coming in. So this insight from non-traditional sources. So here's another example. By the way, the reason I'm giving all these examples is because a lot of people think the Internet of Things is just hype. And hopefully by the end of my time here, you'll see that it's not hype. It's happening all around us. So the one in the middle there. So this is a different insurance company, auto insurance company in the U.S. We did a pilot with them. So we at IBM, we established a partnership with the weather company. It's the weather. I can go on and on about how awesome they are, but think of it this way: they do weather predictions, micro weather predictions. If you have an iPhone, it's the weather.com that you get the data from. But they'll do micro predictions. Every time you click the thing, it does a micro prediction based on all sorts of data points about what the weather is going to be around you there. So very, very, these guys are very granular. So one of one of the biggest issues of this insurance company is when catastrophes come, and catastrophes can be major catastrophes, or they can be kind of passing catastrophes like hailstorms. So a hailstorm where the hail is greater than about 1/2 inch is when it starts damaging cars. And so in the Midwest, a lot of what they have to pay out for the car insurance is that people, they get windshields damaged, car damage from hailstorms. So we connected them up through our Internet of Things capabilities, and we did this pilot where we said, for the next time one of these hailstorm comes, let's text people who have cars that might get hit, and just tell them, hey, within the next 20 minutes, we think there's going to be a pretty major, hailstorm that's going to pass by. We recommend you put your car somewhere where it's covered or it has shelter. And just on that, half the people responded and were able to put their cars in. So you can imagine this is saving them real money. This is transformational for them. Taking Internet of Things isn't just about the car sensors. It's about bringing other types of data in, like weather and location and so on, so that they can not only does the insurance company have to spend less, but also the people feel better. They don't have to take their car into the shop. Who wants to take it into the shop? When we go and talk to customers, what's interesting is that when we say Internet of Things, they don't always think in the broad way that we're classifying the Internet of Things. So these are the kind of questions that we go and ask them. Are you thinking about these things? And if they say yes, then they're actually thinking about things that Internet of Things technology can help them with. So things like how much more revenue can I generate from my current assets? We were talking about that, like the garage doors. Now you can offer services after the fact. I need to reduce the cost of running my building. Right? If you're able to know through Presence Insights how people use the building, maybe you change the HVAC systems to compensate. Maybe you don't need 100% of the floor space that you have allocated. Maybe people like a certain way that you set up some area, work area, and so you need to replicate that because they like that work area, but they don't like this other. And so these are the kinds of things that people may not be thinking are Internet of Things, but they are. So we use these kinds of questions here to facilitate an Internet of Things discussion with our customers. Now, when we think about the value that's delivered, we break it up into 4 areas, and this is actually how we're investing at IBM. We announced back in April timeframe that we were investing $3 billion over the next several years into the Internet of Things, and here's how we're thinking about that investment. So at the bottom layer here, this is devices and networks. This is the one area that we're not participating in, right? We're not going to go build a bunch of these devices. We have other folks like GE who build devices, and other folks like Cisco who does networks. And our goal there is to form partnerships with them, because this is where a lot of data is coming from, right? So these are the things down there. And so we want to form as broad a set of partnerships, and we're vendor neutral when it comes to that, which kind of gives us somewhat of a strategic advantage in that space, in that we're not wedded to any one any more than the other. So we want our Internet of Things solution to work for everyone. The next one here is the platform, and this is where IBM has a forte. We love building platforms. And this is where we're building industrial strength capabilities on the cloud-based, that allow you to build Internet of Things kind of applications and transformations. So platform includes things like data ingestion. How do you pull data in from all these different sources? How do you manage that data? Data analytics. So being able to produce actionable insights from the analytics. Rule-based engines that let you specify what happens when you see certain things going on. What do you do there? Do you just send a tweet out? Do you send an email out? Do you ring the alarm because some train is, wheels are overheating and about to collapse? And then wrapped around that, I'll call it security, but it's really more than that. It's privacy, it's risk management. And so when you start thinking about what needs to go in there to enable customers to be innovative, this is all in our sweet spot, right? I mean, we have fantastic analytics. We bought SoftLayer, which is it's an infrastructure as a service company. It has 42 plus data centers and counting. around the world and lots of connectivity between them. So these are all things that it's kind of fun being at IBM doing this because you get to pull the best assets from business units that's their core business. That's what they do. They live and die in the market by having those assets. We get to pull them and make them part of an IoT platform that then we and our partners can build on top of to create really amazing solutions. The next layer up is the applications and solutions. So you have a platform. What do you do on platforms? You build apps on top. So an example of one of those is Maximo, which is a enterprise asset management application that thousands of customers use around the world. And they use it to manage, like as we mentioned, the nuclear power plants, so very big there. And they manage their big assets, little assets, sometimes in regulated industries. But as we build out our IoT platform, we're integrating that Maximo into that platform to enable IoT to really come to these customers. So it's a really good way of extending the value there. And then we have industry transformation. So this is when we bring everything. We can bring in any applications, we can bring in services from IBM, whatever it needs in order to be able to really start transforming that industry, those customers. And one of the products there that we just announced more recently is IoT for automotive. So what do you do when you can connect cars together? Imagine if you have cars that are connected, not only can a manufacturer understand how their cars are being used and maybe improve the design of their cars based on that, but now you can have smarter cities. So if the car 20 cars ahead of you hit some black ice, right? You want to start slowing down. And right now, you don't know that unless you can see it. Maybe it's dark, you can't even see it. But imagine if that information came immediately to your car and it automatically started slowing down and saved lives. So this thing isn't just about saving money, it's really also about changing the quality of life and saving people's well-being. So these are all things that it's kind of fun being at IBM doing this because you get to pull the best assets from business units that's their core business. That's what they do. They live and die in the market by having those assets. We get to pull them and make them part of an IoT platform that then we and our partners can build on top of to create really amazing solutions. The next layer up is the applications and solutions. So you have a platform. What do you do on platforms? You build apps on top. So an example of one of those is Maximo, which is a enterprise asset management application that thousands of customers use around the world. And they use it to manage, like as mentioned, the nuclear power plants, so very big there. And they manage their big assets, little assets, sometimes in regulated industries. But as we build out our IoT platform, we're integrating that Maximo into that platform to enable the IoT to really come to these customers. So it's a really good way of extending the value there. And then we have industry transformation. So this is when we bring everything. We can bring in any applications, we can bring in services from IBM, whatever it needs in order to be able to really start transforming that industry, those customers. And one of the products there that we just announced more recently is IoT for automotive. So what do you do when you can connect cars together? Imagine if you have cars that are connected, not only can a manufacturer understand how their cars are being used and maybe improve the design of their cars based on that, but now you can have smarter cities. So if the car 20 cars ahead of you hit some black ice, right? You want to start slowing down. And right now, you don't know that unless you can see it. Maybe it's dark, you can't even see it. But imagine if that information came immediately to your car and it automatically started slowing down and saved lives. So this thing isn't just about saving money, it's really also about changing the quality of life and saving people's well-being. Again, more examples. Whirlpool is an interesting one. So Whirlpool, they instrument their washers, dishwashers, washing machines, and so they have all this information about how it's being used that helps them to design better. But they can also use that for warranty. I mean, how many of you all had someone come in and they're going to service your dishwasher, and then they come, you wait all day for them to show up, and then they don't have the right parts? Most of us, right? They don't. And it's painful for us, but it's more painful for someone like Whirlpool, because they have to keep sending those trucks back and forth. And so it's costing them a ton, and you're not happy as a customer, they're not happy with the expense. Well, now they can use the fact that we have all these sensors in there to have a much better ability to predict what parts they're gonna need. They can preload those up, send them over, get you taken care of, boom, everyone's happier. The other thing that's helping them, and that's what the 70% is there, but it's also helping them to realize other business models. What if they're able to sell you, soap or something like that, and be able to sell it to you cheaper than anybody else can sell it? So as a result, now all of a sudden they're building a relationship with you beyond just as a manufacturer. And so now you're interacting with them not just when something's wrong, but maybe as someone who's helping you save time and money. I think I'm going to keep going here because I don't know how short I am on time. We talked about the connected cars. I'm good? Okay. We talked about the connected cars and how important that's going to be. This is another reason why security is so important. We have a whole business unit around security, because as we start connecting more things, and you start needing to be sure that those things are securely connected. Very, very important consideration. I mentioned about Whirlpool, Volkswagen. So Volkswagen, the interesting one there is you can start optimizing things like spare parts inventory. Having dollars locked into things like spare parts or capital is something that no company wants, right? They want their money to be spent and invested in other areas. And so if it's just sitting there, in a room, and some of these parts can be real expensive. When you're talking about manufacturing here, this is what we're talking about, the robots or things on the floor. That's not where you want your money tied up. And so being able to better understand, when these robots really need maintenance, when they're going to fail, what kinds of parts they're going to need when that happens, it helps them to make really dramatic changes. So that's one thing that I find really interesting about IoT is that in the most part, the numbers that you're seeing, the kind of change, it's not little dollars here and there. You're talking numbers like 70%, 95%. These are transformational, right? If it takes someone, let's say you're buying a dishwasher and you know that whenever it breaks, it's going to be a quick in and out, and that it always gets fixed. That may be a reason why you buy that dishwasher versus someone else where it takes a long time. No one knows when it's going to break. If they can predict when it's going to break, the maintenance person might even proactively schedule something. So it's these things that percolate from massive changes at the company down to even changing the way you think about your relationship with the manufacturer. It's no longer just a brand name. It's no longer just what your parents bought and what you're used to. You're actually starting to make decisions based on how you interact with them and what that means to your schedule and to your expectations. This is an interesting one around Airbus. So talking about changing industries and about changing business models. So if you think about your Airbus, you build these planes, right? You sell them to airlines, and the airlines go off and maintain them for the most part, right? This is kind of the traditional thing. So imagine how much money and time and effort is lost in that. So you're an airline. You have to go and train people. You have to get them certified. You have to have your own spare parts. You have to know as much about the plane almost as Airbus needs to know about. Well, what if Airbus decided, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to be the ones who maintain the aircraft, and so all of a sudden they're the ones that have to carry in spare parts. Well, that's okay. You got economies of scale. You understand what condition your engines are in when you need to maintain them. You have all this knowledge that lets you optimize across a broader scale this whole notion of maintenance. What's even more interesting here, so that's good, so that saves money right there. What's even more interesting is that if you're an airline and you're saying, okay, well maybe I'll save some good money on the maintenance. The other thing that's interesting is that if you own this plane and you want to resell it, which people, that's what these airlines do. They'll buy a plane, they'll have it for a certain number of years, and resell it to someone else. Eventually, it gets out of commission. But if you're going to resell it, one of the things that drives up the resale value is having a very detailed and comprehensive list of what maintenance was done when, what parts and so on were used, all that kind of stuff about that airplane. Just having that information and knowing that being able to see it can raise the resale value of a plane by 25%. So we're talking about these planes that cost hundreds of millions. It's a lot when you're ordering a bunch of these things, and you think about a 25% number against your fleet of planes. Massive amount of money, massive amount of money, and Airbus is what Airbus is gaining. They're gaining a whole new line of business that they can then leverage, and they're gaining some economies of scale around that as well. So these things are happening, and this is something that's active. Silverhook is interesting. So these guys are these power boats. You can see that they do racing, and this was one of these. I'll call it one of these fun IoT type of things where there's actually two people in the boat. Like one of them kind of drives, and the other one manages everything that's going on in there. And so they decided to instrument one of these boats. And by instrument, I mean they take all the data, the speed, the oil pressure, all these things, and they pull that out. They also instrument the people, so they start taking their blood pressure and all that just as another set of data. And what they did is they fed all that into some algorithms that they have around to help them predict what might happen in this boat. And so they did this in one of the first times or it wasn't the first time, it was maybe the second, third time, one of the initial times they did it. They found that there was a condition, and they predicted accurately that there was that something was going to fail in the boat. And so this got transmitted back to the guy who manages all the boat, and he was able to take proactive action. And sure enough, he realized that what it predicted was happening. He managed to take proactive action, and was able to actually still place in the race because they knew this was happening. And so not only does it help them, win, now the audience likes this better too, because all that information is transferred over to some app that now they can see the inside of the boat, they can see all the stats, and whereas before you kind of sit out there and you'd see this boat, these boats flying off in the distance, now you feel like you're there, so it engages the audience more, it can create more audience participation, maybe more people will start watching the sport, so the people who sponsor it, it helps them. So again, it's changing the very nature of how you experience this sport, setting different expectations, and it's just happening. So here's just some examples. Again, part of what I want to do here is, and I'm hoping I'm doing, is convincing you this is not a dream, that this is happening today. It's been happening, and in some cases that I mentioned, you all may have already experienced some of that happening to you in your own personal lives. But we're real excited because these customers are coming to us. Customers are asking us questions. They want to brainstorm with us. There's a lot of innovation that we're doing together. Us having the platform and technology and experience, and then being experts in their own field, in their own industry. And then here, I wanted to end on back to the notion of partnerships. There's other customers out there, other partners out there that really are getting this. And you can see someone like an ARM. They have a set of they call them embed, which are embeddable units. You can embed these things into other electronics that you're building. And one of the things that they agree to do with us is to put in some special code into those, so that it's very easy for them, those embeddable components, to automatically register with this platform that I mentioned before. And so what it automatically registers, and automatically can start sending data in. So if you're building on top of the platform and you got a bunch of these embed things, they'll register themselves, and you can just kind of drag and drop and say, okay, where do I want this data to go? What kind of rules do I want to set up? When this thing gets too hot, call so-and-so. This thing gets too cold, send it a maintenance work order. When this, you can start setting that up kind of in a drag and drop kind of way, very, very easily. And you saw earlier I had the ibm.com/IoT. I hope that tonight or tomorrow all of you go there, and when there's it's got a fascinating information there. One of the things you can click on where it says IoT Foundation, you can actually connect your iPhone into the platform with just a couple clicks. It's that easy. You type in like a security thing, it gives you like a QR code, or it gives you like a short URL. Either way you do it, and the next thing you know, you can go in there, and as you move your iPhone, you can see the accelerometer, you know, the readings and everything. You're connected in. Your iPhone is now part of the Internet of Things as connected through the platform. So it really is that easy, and that's why the innovation is accelerating at the pace that it is. One other thing that we're also working with the partners, especially the silicon ones, are around security. So being able to do security at the level of the silicon is one way that really helps to prevent, you know, some of the things we've been seeing in the news. And so being able to have those devices be integrated in a secure way through our security technology and their security technology is really core for us. So I think I'm just out of time here. Again, the thing that I would want to leave you with, please go to ibm.com/IoT. Again, you'll find really interesting things there that'll cover things that I haven't been able to here. As I would say, the first thing. The second thing is subscribe to some of these hashtags, like, you know, hashtag IoT or IBM IoT, some of these to see the kinds of things people are doing. It's actually amazing what's happening right now. And the third thing I would say is, as you think about that, and think about these market forces, apply it to your own domain. And see how you can bring the IoT into, as value into the area that you're in. And there's very few areas that I've seen that IoT can't do something really, really interesting around. It's just a matter of understanding the art of the possible and being creative. Maybe having a glass of wine or beer sometimes helps the creativity process, but just taking the time to do that can really open up some really interesting new thought process, new worlds for folks. So with that, thank you, and let me pass it back.